Hey guys, my name is Jason Dunbar. I am the youth and young adult pastor at Woodburn Baptist. Welcome to our Woodburn Students Weekly Devotion. We have a few things going on this week. On July 22nd, which is today, we are having our first youth in-person, outdoor, socially distanced, safe activity. We're having a movie night. This is airing at 7 o'clock, so you have an hour to get to the church. It starts at 8 o'clock. Of course, it'll have to be dark, so we're doing this outside. We're going to be watching a movie. We have some prepackaged food for you guys, so safe food, safe drinks. You can bring a blanket, bring a chair, come hang out. This is for students grades 7 through 12, and also those students who are coming into the 7th grade, outgoing 6th graders. We want to welcome you guys and have you guys come on and join us as well. If something has changed, I'm recording this on Tuesday, so if something has changed in the next day before we actually have that, I will let you know. But as of right now, 8 o'clock tonight at the church, outside, socially distant. We have masks available. You can bring your mask. You can wear it. Once we get in position where you're distanced enough from each other, you can take those masks off. We just want to be safe and respectful for each other. But I cannot wait to see you guys in person. Also, if you are 10th through 12th grade, this Friday, July 24th, we are having a prom. This is going to be a small, fun, outdoor activity at the DeVries home on their large patio. If I know some of you have already registered, so go ahead and make sure that you register right now. It's at bit.ly/WBC prom. You can also go to church website, woodburnbaptist.org, and click on the link right there on the student ministry page and register there. You can bring a friend or a date. Everything is free. If you have a prom dress or a tuxedo, wear that. If you don't go out and buy one. You can just dress up in whatever kind of clothes that you want. But it's more of just to have fun. We're going to have some photos, have a DJ there, and for a couple hours from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Just come and hang out. Again, we'll be safe, we'll be socially distant, and be careful. But we want to just see you guys in person. And I know you didn't get to have a prom, so this is not going to make up for that. But at least it's a fun time for you guys to come out. So come and join us for that. If you have any questions, call me or text me. My number is 270-704-0317. My email is jasondunbar@woodburnbaptist.org. So let's get into it. Today we're going to be talking about how we talk to people. This has been a topic for years, but it's really, I think, taken on new perspective over the last several months. But it's one of the most important things that we do when we talk to people is to remember to be truthful, right? Nobody likes to be lied to. Nobody likes to be misled or deceived. But lying is kind of universally understood to be rude. And of course, we know that lying is a sin. So we want to avoid lying, right? But there's times we have to be careful about how we talk to people and how we approach the truth. You all know my daughter, Charlie. She is 4, so she's at that age where she likes to explain everything that she sees, and she tells things like it is, and so she's pretty blunt. But when it comes to like giving gifts to people, have surprises, she loves surprises. She loves to give gifts, and so like I'll tell her we have a surprise for Caitlin for Mother's Day, and she just can't hold that in. She wants to tell her so bad, so she immediately runs to Caitlin and tells her we have a surprise, but I can't tell you. And that'll last for a little while, and then ultimately she can't contain herself and she wants to tell what that gift is. And so she knows that she's supposed to be truthful. She knows that she's supposed to tell the truth, and so she can't contain the truth. But the thing is that I'm thankful that she's zealous for truth, but it's important to know how to tell the truth and when to be truthful with people. And truth is only half the equation, and it's important to be truthful. But when we speak truth, it needs to be spoken in love. Love is the other part of that equation, truth and love. Without love, truth can lose its value, because without love, some people just kind of tune out the message because it's spoken to them in a way that turns them off. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 14 through 16, you can turn there. I'm going to read that. It says, "Then we will no longer be immature like children. We won't be tossed and blown about by every wind of new teaching. We will not be influenced when people try to trick us with lies so clever they sound like the truth. Instead, we will speak the truth in love, growing in every way more and more like Christ, who is the head of his body, the church. He makes the whole body fit together perfectly as each part does its own special work. It helps the other parts grow so that the whole body is healthy and growing and full of love." See, Paul here is talking about unity in the church, about growing together as one body to maturity. In verse 13, before that, he says that unity will help us to measure up to the full and complete standard of Jesus Christ. Then once we have reached that and we measured up to that, we will no longer be like immature children, right? So, what childish characteristics do you no longer wish to demonstrate as you grow up? You know, we won't turn from the truth easily, is he's saying, because you'll know facts, you'll know wisdom, you'll have wisdom. We won't be gullible like children, in who believe every new thing they see or hear, because to them all facts are truth. But instead, as we mature and grow in Christ, we will hold to real truth and solid truth, and we will speak that truth in love. And then it's important to emphasize the in love part. Again, little kids tell the truth, but they often lack tact, right? I can ask Charlie to be truthful to me about what I look like in something. She's going to tell me that looks weird, or you're fat, or your hair looks funny. And she'll tell that to anybody, to a complete stranger, because to her it's a fact, and this is the way it is. It's not about hurting your feelings or protecting your feelings, because they're immature, right? And someone who is immature doesn't take into account hurting someone or what is appropriate. But someone who has matured in Christ doesn't talk to people that way, right? Instead, the mature Christian should tell the truth, but tell it in a way that's loving, in a way that will build people up. You know the story of Job. Job's friends are a great example of people who speak truth for the most part, but they're unloving and they don't really represent what God would have them to say in that. Job was in a bad spot. All these things had happened. His life was wrecked, and so he was living in kind of just chaos. And it wasn't a punishment from God. We know that, but his friends assumed that everything that had gone wrong in his life was because of something he had done, a sin that he had committed. And so they showed up. They were being good friends. They were there. They even sat in silence with him, like a good friend should do, to kind of mourn with him and feel his pain with him. But then when they began to speak, things kind of went downhill pretty quickly. They wanted to fix Job's problem, right? So that's being a good friend. But the problem is they began to preach at him. Each one of them said things that might have had some truth to them, but they weren't telling him these things in love. They were telling him these things out of kind of self-righteousness and out of judgmentalism and out of annoyance and condemnation. A few of the examples, Eliphaz was the first in Job chapter 5. He said, "But consider the joy of those corrected by God. Do not despise the discipline of the Almighty when you sin, for though he wounds, he also bandages. He strikes, but his hands also heal." Well, of course, those things are true of God, because he does heal. He does offer grace and emotional and physical healing. But in this particular situation, it was not appropriate because it wasn't spoken out of love, first of all. But his friend was hurting. His friend was devastated. And instead of just loving him, he was judging him, saying, you should be happy that you're even alive, basically, at this point. And then later on, his other friend, Zophar, speaks in Job chapter 11. He says, "Can you solve the mysteries of God? Can you discover everything about the Almighty? Such knowledge is higher than the heavens. And who are you? It is deeper than the underworld. What do you know?" Again, truth. But the Bible tells us that God's ways and God's thoughts are much higher than our ways and our thoughts. We can't understand everything that God does and everything that God allows to happen in the world and how He operates. So he's asking, who is Job to think that he can understand that? But the problem then is his motives and his approach and how he speaks to Job. And all of these friends kind of have the same issue. Bildad, basically surmises that Job's children died because they had committed some kind of sin, and Zophar, basically saying that Job got off easy because whatever sin deserved even more pain and suffering. So he should be grateful for what he does have. Everything they said might have some truth to it, but it was framed from this position of assumed guilt. And they had judged Job for these sins that he hadn't even committed, and assumed that he was living, against God, in opposition to God, and that everything that happened to him was happening because of those sins. They weren't loving Job in the way that they should. They were telling him just basically, sit down and be quiet and take this punishment like a man. God knew Job, right? God knew what was going on, and he knew that Job hadn't done anything wrong. He didn't really appreciate Job's friends treating him like that and putting words in his mouth. and attributing these things about God's character. Job 42 says this: after the Lord had finished speaking to Job, he said to Eliphaz the Temanite, I'm angry with you and your two friends, for you have not spoken accurately about me as my servant Job has. They spoke inaccurately about God's character. God doesn't cause bad things to happen because you mess up. That is not what God is all about. And so they were basically judging Job and attributing these things to God's character when they were not true. And they were pulling their own feelings into the situation, really. They presumed that they were right, like we often do, right? And speaking for God because they were saying, they had just come up with this solution of what they assumed to be true. And the things that they were all basing this on was completely false, because they were basing every opinion and everything that they said on the fact that they thought Job had sinned, when that was not in fact true. And I've been guilty of this. You've been guilty of this, to say things, in the wrong way, maybe at the wrong time, or even for the wrong reasons. And people tend to jump to conclusions a lot of times even when our motive is to help that person, to make them feel better, or to fix the situation. But we begin to speak in partial fact. We have a small amount of the information, so we begin to act or to speak on that. And our words of wisdom aren't really wise because we don't have all of the facts. And sometimes it creates more frustration than the actual situation was. Ephesians 4:29 says, don't use foul or abusive language. Let everything you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. We tend to focus on that beginning of that. Don't use foul or abusive language, because we tend to say, as long as I'm speaking nice words, then it's fine, right? But we forget about the other part of that passage. Let everything you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. So everything that we say should be an offering of encouragement. Be careful not to speak things that are corrupt, that tear people down. Even if you're using nice words, you can still tear people down. You can still corrupt because you don't have all the facts. And it's important to offer grace in every situation, because you don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes. So before you jump into sharing your wisdom, which we often do, we call it our opinion, even if it's true in your eyes and in everything that you have gathered together, especially when you're sharing something with someone who is hurting, ask yourself if it meets these requirements. Is this being spoken in love? Is this truth being spoken in love? Ask yourself, will it build them up? Is this a truth that is going to benefit this person? Is it going to build them up? Is it appropriate right now to say this? Is this going to provide an opportunity to minister with grace to this person? Everything else, even if it's delivered in the best way possible, is corrupt. So my challenge for you this week is to remind yourself of this thing, that I will say the right things at the right time and only in the right way. That's very important, to say the right things. It's important that we say things that are truthful, right? It's important that we say things at the right time, but it is absolutely essential that we say those things in the right way, right? Because it doesn't matter when we say it or what we say. If it's not said in the right way, with love and without judgment or condemnation, if it's not said in that way, then it won't be received in the way that we want it to be. It's not going to build people up. So that's my challenge for you guys this week, to think before you speak. It sounds simple, but think, is this the right thing, the right time, and is this going to be the right way to share that? I love you guys. I miss you. I cannot wait to see you in person. Hopefully that will be this week. But God bless you guys. I'll see you soon.